If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. This is going to be one of those broadcasts where we are going to let these politicians speak for themselves. And thankfully, that's because of the streaming policy now in the Arkansas Senate. We have excellent audio, excellent video from the Arkansas Senate Committee Chamber, this specifically the old Supreme Court room where they meet. A few committees meet. One specific committee that meets there that is of interest to me is the Senate Revenue and Taxation Committee. They heard a bill yesterday that we've talked about for the last 3 days now, Senate Bill 561. And this is a bill that is being billed as tax cuts. We have highlighted how inside this bill there is something called an earned income tax credit, which is a Democrat policy. This has been championed by Senator Jim Hendren, the Republican president pro temp of the Senate and nephew of Governor Asa Hutchinson, is championing this bill. It did pass out of the Senate committee yesterday on a voice vote. There appeared to only be one dissenting vote audible, and that was Senator Trent Gardner, who respectfully wanted to delay the bill so that they could analyze the fiscal impact statement that wasn't official until 8:30 that morning. Of course, we also know, based on other reports, previous reports, that the chairman of the committee, the former president pro tem, Senator Jonathan Dismang, was also against the bill. According to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Senator Dismang is against Senator Hendren's bill because an earned income tax credit is not an idea that the task force talked about. It was not a consensus. It was not something that was recommended by the task force, I guess is what I should say. It was pretty obvious that the committee did not want to go through it. Even people that voted for this bill did not want to vote for that bill yesterday. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it just kind of gives you a glimpse into the atmosphere, into the environment of the Marble Palace down there. When you had, for example, at one point, Senator Jason Rapert yesterday expressed his trepidation about moving forward yesterday, even though he's a co-sponsor on the bill. Senator Blake Johnson thought they should wait, and from what I can tell, was supportive of this. Of course, Senator Cecile Bledsoe, she's on the committee as well. I don't think she said a word during the entire committee. I think she was a solid locked-up yes, and all of the Democrats on the committee are solid yeses because they've been trying to get an earned income tax credit for the last 10 years in this state, pretty much. So, it was pretty interesting. We'll see what happens. There are some discrepancies in the numbers. Of course, in order to pay for the earned income tax credit and some other things, tweaking deductions and that sort of thing. 80 cents a pack. Your cigarettes, they're going to tax cigarettes 80 cents more a pack. Then the industry, though, the tobacco industry, is saying it's not 88 cents, it's $1.20. In practical terms, it's not even 80 cents, not 88 cents, it's $1.20. So we got some interesting news yesterday. I mean, just to watch the whole process, it was amazing to me just how much sway Senator Jim Hendren has with the committee. It's like even when they say, well, I don't really want to do this, but okay. I don't really want to go down this path, but okay, I will. That's basically what happened yesterday. But there was some interesting pushback, namely from Senator Trent Garner. and we'll talk about that today. We've got the audio queued up. I mean, and it's ready to go. Before we do, I do believe I should tell anybody out there listening on a separate issue. If you were planning to drive to the Capitol this morning and attend the House Judiciary Committee meeting because you are supportive of laws that would begin to curtail gun-free zones, you should not go to the Capitol this morning because they are not going to run HB 1694. Gary Epperson, writing this on Facebook, for all the people who are planning on attending HB 1694 hearing tomorrow, the Moms Demand 1, meaning Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense, the radical anti-Second Amendment group. I sent this to my folks that were coming tomorrow. No need to come to Little Rock. House Bill 1694 will not run due to a lack of Republican support on the committee. Thank you for your willingness to help. I am truly sorry that you will not have the opportunity to testify in support of this legislation. Share this with everyone planning on attending. State Representative Stan Berry was the key vote, and he was a no from what we gathered along with State Representative Charlene Fite. We ain't done fighting just yet. So I kind of thought this was the case. That's kind of what I was hearing. We were hearing that some people were using false information, telling the committee members that if you were to pass this law that still had exemptions for you couldn't possess a gun. There would still it was an attempt to eliminate gun-free zones, but there were still exceptions where there would be gun-free zones, like a courthouse, like a school, and that sort of thing. It's common sense legislation if you believe that gun-free zones are where crazy people go to take mass life. If you don't believe that, then you probably agree with Moms Demand Action. Now, the legislative process is very fluid. Sometimes there's miscommunication, so it's possible that it's possible that maybe there are other reasons. Notice Mr. Epperson here says Representative Stan Berry was the key vote, and his was a no from what we gathered, meaning there's always the opportunity to change your mind and say, you know what, I do believe that gun-free zones are the problem. I do believe that gun-free zones preventing people from carrying a weapon, their Second Amendment rights, their personal right to human, self-preservation, human defense. I do believe that it's those areas that are called soft targets, and soft targets attract crazy people because they get to enact their sick fantasy for a longer period of time before the authorities show up and end their sick fantasy by throwing bullets back in their direction. And a lot of times when that happens, by the way, what do the crazy people do? They turn the gun on themselves and they end it there, right? So it is sad that we would have that the bill here would be pulled for lack of Republican support. But there's still the session is still young. There's still time to sway opinions, and there's still time to get So I would just say this: if this is something that you believe in, that gun-free zones are an issue, then I would just politely, congenially reach out to your state representative, especially if they're on that Judiciary Committee, and encourage them and just say, hey, we're with you. You're a Republican, and we believe in the Second Amendment. We believe in the right to defense, and that also means the right to defense and defend ourselves in public, where all these mass shootings happen most of the time. The telephone number today is 870-275-9799. Did you show that Facebook post? Okay, so they saw it. Okay, I'm just making sure. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. We're going to reset, and then I'm going to bring you this audio from yesterday inside the Senate committee. You want to listen to this because it is going to be a very educational program today. Coming up at the bottom of the next hour, we'll be talking with a mental health advocate. Mr. David Colbert will be on the program. I'm sure talking about, I think he's working on some legislation that has to deal with casinos and gambling addiction and mental health, and how, it's a mental health problem that the state fuels. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's always great to have David on. He's a great interview. We're going to be back here in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
First, introduce you to, welcome back to the program, rather. Dan Perkins is back with us, master storyteller, author of the Brotherhood of the Red Nile trilogy. Dan, how are you, sir? We appreciate it.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. I wanted to have you on because I have been loosely following what's going on with this Brexit, or at this point, I'm worried that it's a non-Brexit Brexit. What can you tell us about this? And isn't this an example of the elites that, govern these countries just not wanting to listen to the will of the people?
You don't need me. You got it right. It's absolutely, you're spot on. I just think that we're seeing two mysteries play out. If you follow the Brexit,
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So, there was a lawsuit that was filed against indicted Senator Jeremy Hutchinson by Preferred Family Healthcare. Preferred Family Healthcare, remember this? That they sued him for payment of legal work that was never done. Remember this? And it exactly, Joe, because he wasn't supposed to do legal work because it was for a bribe. Oh, man. Well, anyway, a federal judge in Little Rock tossed the lawsuit against former attorney and state senator Jeremy Hutchinson on Monday after a Missouri-based nonprofit group agreed to drop its claim accusing him of not performing contracted legal work. So they're dropping that claim. Well, then what'd you pay the money for? That would be my next question. What did you pay him the money for then? Now, is this separate? Let me ask you this. Is this separate from the $384,000? Let's see. Preferred Family sued Hutchinson and his former law partners. Oh, well, those former law partners, they kicked him out of his law firm. They said, we don't want you. We don't want your shingle next to our shingle. We need a separation of the shingles. What kind of what is that? Is that like a legal some sort of It's like a divorce. It's like a divorce that's like exponentially worse than a divorce between married people. It's the divorce between attorneys where they have to separate the shingles. Don't hang your shingle next to my shingle. Preferred Family Healthcare sued Hutchinson and his former law partners for at least $384,000, or the amount awarded to an ex-employee in a case in which Hutchinson represented one of Preferred Family's subsidiaries. Let's see here. The nonprofit group, let's see, what is this? This is Eric Besson, again, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. The nonprofit group, which has been ensnared in a wide-ranging federal public corruption investigation, paid Hutchinson $9,000 per month in lawyer fees. Its complaint accused Hutchinson of not attending hearings or responding to motions in the 2014 lawsuit called David Coleman versus Health and Human Resources of Arkansas. Interesting. So $300,000, almost $400,000. Is this in addition to the $500,000 that Preferred Family Healthcare, Rusty Cranford in his guilty plea, who had tried to have a guy killed. We always got to put that in there. You mentioned Rusty Cranford. Unfortunately, you have to, because it ups the stakes, right? It takes it from just a typical Arkansas good old boy corruption scheme where everybody's cool, nobody wants to kill anybody, to like a typical Murder, She Wrote episode where all of a sudden, whoa, we're just talking about scamming the taxpayer and masquerading as a politician when I'm really still an attorney. We're not talking about killing anybody. Whoa, slow your roll. But so Rusty Cranford, as he pleads guilty in this corruption craze, this lobbyist, Rusty Cranford, they find him. The government says when they arrested him, he had $17,000 cash and a revolver on him, and this was after they recorded him trying to hire a former felon to go murder a guy in the state of New Jersey who had flipped and had taken a plea back in December of 2017. It's crazy, but that's Arkansas for you, okay? That's typical. That's actually par for the course if you know your history. So, that guy pled guilty, and that guy said that Jeremy Hutchinson was bribed $500,000 by Preferred Family Healthcare. And he has not been charged with that. Instead, Hutchinson has been charged with campaign finance violations. He's been indicted over that. That's why he resigned. But if you go back and you look at the legislation that Jeremy Hutchinson filed, one of them was a resolution commemorating and celebrating the amazing contributions of Tom and Bontia Goss, who are the head or were the heads of Preferred Family Healthcare. It was a resolution just saying, hey, we thank them for their amazing work. Oh, man. Gosh. Interesting. All right, so let's see here. Hang on one second. Do we need to get to some of this? I'm thinking about putting it in another segment. But let's go ahead and get to it right now, okay? This is yesterday, the Senate Committee on Taxation. I'm sorry, the Senate Revenue and Tax Committee. If you say Senate Committee on Taxation, kind of makes you think they're just raising people's taxes all the time. That's not what's going on here at all. By the way, the whiteboard today says Internet Tax 2.0. And that's just reminding everybody that 2 years ago, the conservatives were able to rally the troops enough, stay unified enough to defeat the Internet tax last time. And now they want another Internet tax this time. They're coming back saying we got to have it. It's already baked into Governor Asa Hutchinson's budget. Internet sales tax. All right. Let's get to it. The very beginning, this is the earned income tax credit. This is the Democrats' biggest policy goal. They've been wanting this policy for a long time, and Republican Jim Hendren is going to give it to them. And we're all going to pay for it. Again, it's a redistribution of wealth scheme. And this is Senator Trent Garner opening the meeting saying, hey, Senator Hendren, maybe we should wait and not hear this bill today. Listen.
Bill 571.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion in proper time.
Okay. Senator Gardner, what's your motion?
Thank you. I have a motion to postpone to a time certain Senate Bill 571. That time certain will be Wednesday on a special order at a regular 10 a.m. meeting. Okay. This is a debatable motion. I'm more than happy to explain myself if needed.
Okay. It's a proper motion. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Would you like to explain your motion?
I would. This is a major change to our tax code. This bill was filed late on Thursday. Over the weekend, I had dozens and dozens of people reach out to me, both in phone calls, text messages. I had hundreds of emails on this. And over again, people were asking, what are the numbers on this? And I told them, well, I think we're going to meet on Wednesday. We'll have time to see the fiscal impact. I didn't realize till Saturday morning we were meeting today on Monday. I don't think that's out of order. I'm not saying there's a nefarious point behind that. But I looked through our record. We only met at one time on Monday this whole session other than today. Now, that's not our normal meeting time, so it's a little bit fast. I checked on Saturday for the fiscal impact statement. I checked on Sunday for the fiscal impact statement. I woke up early this morning at 6 a.m. to get the fiscal impact statement. At 6 a.m., it was not there. On my ride here, which is 2.5 hours from El Dorado, I saw the fiscal impact statement for the public consumption for the first time. I checked at 8:30. Might have been there before then. This is a major change with a lot of moving numbers, and I think that to do this in such a truncated fashion is going against the transparency and what we try to do as a body. I think waiting 2 days so people can digest this, we can answer questions, us as a committee can dive into these numbers, we're not under the pressure of this committee, is a appropriate thing. I'm not asking this to be delayed for months. I'm not asking this to be delayed for weeks. I'm asking for 2 days so the people who have concerns, myself and others, can dive into these numbers further. So that's the purpose for this motion.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak to that?
1 second. Again, let's let the members of the committee have a discussion, and then I think we'll take some latitude and let you have some comments too.
Can we stop here for a second? This happened a few times where Senator Hendren wanted to speak out of turn. It's almost like he thinks because he's the president pro temp that committee rules don't apply. Now, it's also interesting to note this happened a few times throughout committee. I'm serious. Where Dismang actually, at one point, Dismang had to be like, I'll handle that. I can't remember what the procedure was, but it was, I know what it was. There's a time here coming up where Senator Gardner is asking a question, and Senator Hendren says, is that a question, or are you just going to talk? And Dismang looks at Hendren and says, I'll handle that, meaning like if he's going to ramble, I'm the one that brings him back into order, not you. Now, keep in mind, it's Senator Dismang who's against this bill, the chairman of the committee. He's against this particular piece of legislation. And he even told the paper that we're not pursuing ideas that the task force recommended. And then you had Lane Jean saying the same thing yesterday, as well as Joe Jett, the head of the Revenue and Tax Committee in the House, saying he doesn't think this is a good idea. Again, an earned income tax credit is a Democrat policy goal. It is a welfare program. It is a redistribution of wealth concept. And I found out yesterday that it's also going to make Arkansas's tax code a little bit more complicated. It actually goes against the simplification, at least according to what some people said in that committee hearing yesterday. So here we go. We have Senator Garner essentially saying, look, oh, by the way, Senator Trent Garner, he did really good yesterday. I just want everybody to know. Republican Senator Trent Garner did really good, kind of bringing a lot of issues to the forefront. Now, as I say that, I think I also need to I need to caution Senator Trent Garner, assuming that he's listening, that he needs to be careful because the governor will primary you if you step outside the box too much. You know, if you step outside the rank and file too often, you might get a primary opponent. That's just something that it just needs to be said. Now, I don't think Senator Trent Garner, just from what I know of him, he's not a guy that's afraid of anything. So, anyway, he actually here in a minute asks Senator Hendren why we're not going to need a 75% threshold in each chamber if we're raising the tobacco tax. And this is now the second time this session that the establishment seems to want to raise your taxes and get around Amendment 19 by just taxing the same product but calling it a new tax. Instead of a sales tax on cigarettes, it's now an excise tax. Matter of fact, somebody on Facebook just sounded off. Bill on Facebook. Let me find Bill's comment here. The cigarette tax is a tax on the total current price, which already includes the tobacco stamp taxes. We are now taxing taxes. Back in a minute.
Issue. The vote was during the presidential primaries in the United States. And I remember listening to the analysis of the vote after it actually happened that same day on the BBC, and you could clearly tell that when they were interviewing the common folks, in the hinterlands, they were very much in wanting to leave because they saw their country being destroyed. Their heritage, their culture, their language, their laws were being dictated out of Brussels. And already 60% of the laws on the books in England were driven by the European Union. And the British people were afraid, and rightfully so, that they were losing their identity and losing control of their history and their culture. And as a result, they voted, the common folk voted to leave. The night of the election, it reminded me of the night of Donald Trump's election in 2016. They were beside themselves. And it is an example where, as you pointed out, the majority will of the people was thwarted by the elite who decided that the common folks were not smart enough to make the right decision. We have the same thing going on right now in the United States. And it started when Donald Trump was elected, and the idea that the deep state, and we have a much better picture today to what extreme certain people in the government, the deep state, went to try and prevent him from being elected, and then trying to get rid of him after he was elected. And it's another example, and we saw in the last few weeks the scandal at the colleges and universities, where the elites in this country would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy their children's way into a prestigious university. It is another example of the elites deciding they know what's best for us, and they are held to a different standard.
We're talking again with Dan Perkins. You have heard about his books on the program before, the Brotherhood of the Red Nile trilogy. Also, you can see his writings at the Daily Caller, Clash Daily, LifeSet, Newsmax, TheHill.com. Dan, you mentioned the American deep state, or just maybe just the deep state. And we've seen, like you said, we know the depths they're willing to go. We see the players, specific people, I think more. Certainly they're not coming.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. It's always great to have you guys on. So I'm excited, or listening. I'm excited about talking tomorrow with Tim Loggins of the Patriots VEC 746, because I'm going to make this announcement again. If you haven't heard this already, if you were planning on attending Little Rock today for the House Judiciary Committee to hear House Bill 1694 or to testify for it, a bill to end gun-free zones here in Arkansas. It's not going to run today due to lack of Republican support on the committee. Gary Epperson writing, quote, "Thank you for your willingness to help. I'm truly sorry, but you will not have the opportunity to testify in support of this legislation. Share with everyone planning on attending to let them know not to come to Little Rock." Representative Stanberry was the key vote, and his was a no from what we gathered, along with State Representative Charlene Fight. And it says Doug House. I guess Ann House, is that what that means? Does that mean House? He's on that committee as well, I believe. Speaking of Doug House, and this just goes to show how you can be so fluid on different issues, and you can agree with somebody on one issue, disagree with them on another. Conduit News YouTube page did put up Doug House's epic speech from the House floor yesterday, or last week, rather, about this dark money bill. Now, I believe that's going to run today in Judiciary as well. This was a bill by Representative Jimmy Gazaway, made it out of committee, was pulled from the House floor in the midst of the debate. Doug House making great points on personal privacy in the First Amendment, and now it's going to be heard, I think, in that same committee today. So there is still stuff going to happen in that committee, and we'll see what happens. I'm told that Arkansas Right to Life is still opposed to the bill as amended. because it just is going to affect, it's going to make people disclose their donors if they say, I mean, let's say this, and they're saying, well, Paul, it's only for judicial candidates. Well, I'm sorry. What if you have a judge that's made a terrible ruling? Now, I'm not talking about one of those technicalities where they have to make a ruling because of the law, they have to honor the law. But, I mean, I'm talking about what if you have a judge that's just the worst? We can't say something about that judge? Well, we can, but then you have to disclose your donors if you're this, one of these nonprofits? Come on. And that's the problem here. Is, we could have a discussion on dark money. I personally, I agree with State Representative John Payton. He went down to the well, said, I don't think there should be any limits on campaign contributions. I think you should be able to spend your money where you want. And, honestly, because campaign contributions, guess what? Campaign contributions are disclosed, right? If you give money directly to a candidate, they disclose that, don't they? Yeah, they do. So you want to end this dark money thing. The solution is very simple. You just end campaign contribution caps. And then everybody knows who's backing who. Because it's right there. You don't give the money to the PACs anymore. You don't have to worry about these laws. Well, is the PAC coordinating with the candidate? Blah, 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 blah. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's just, you want to support somebody? Yeah, you can give them $50,000. You can give them $1 million. Here you go. I just don't see why there would be anything wrong with that. Okay, but again, that would not be a perfect system either. Okay, I don't pretend that would solve all problems. That wouldn't be a perfect system either. Everybody talks about dark money. You know who has the real dark money? And that's Jeremy Hutchinson. He got the real dark money. Some of these other guys, that's the real dark money. And they will not pass a Medicaid disclosure bill. And they want to talk to me about ethics. They want to talk to you about, we're trying to save the image of the Arkansas Senate. And they won't dare take up Medicaid disclosure that's failed 5 times before. 5 times before we had public admissions and convictions and everything else. Or indictments, I should say. Yes, that's right. All right, picking back up. Yesterday, Senator Jim Hendren explaining his Democrat policy, the Earned Income Tax Credit, his Senate Bill 571. Thankfully, we do have, thanks to him, we have cameras. Listen to this.
Increase. Next thing I want to give you an example is, and I got this from some experts on EITC that I've trusted in Washington. A single filer with 2 children. So a single mom with 2 kids under this who's working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, making $9.15 an hour is going to have an income of about $19,000. Under the current law, before we pass Senate Bill 571, they're going to have a total tax due of about $339.49.
The graphic needs to cover
if you pass Senate Bill 571, and what I'm using here is to show you that this is really worst case scenario, because most cases an EITC is not even going to generate a refund, but in some it will. And this is somebody who's low income, 2 children, going to get the maximum credit that an EITC can provide. Under this bill, they're going to save $134 because of the change in the rate. They're going to save $79 because of the standard deduction. So their total is going to be, instead of $339, it's going to be $214, or they're going to save about $125 prior to the EITC. So instead of paying $339, they're going to pay $214. Now the EITC is going to give a credit, 5% of $5,800, which is the maximum credit that somebody in this situation can get. So the earner is going to get a check of $77.30 instead of paying the original tax of $339.49. So yeah, it does in the situation of a single mom with 2 kids working an entire year at $9.15 an hour, it does give her a refund. But as far as the total tax relief, you're talking about going from $339 paying to about a $75 check. I don't think most of us would say that, given the fact that Right now in Arkansas, we have some of the highest sales tax in the country.
Ooh.
This person is paying sales tax at an incredibly higher rate than most other states. I don't think this is really an unfair ask.
Stop.
For tax policy.
Boy, that's a good clip there. We have some of the highest sales tax in the country, says the chairman of the Task Force on Tax Relief. And at the even if you take them at their word, like, we can't cut a tax in this state without raising a tax somewhere else. I mean, that's the truth, right? Now, I know Governor Hutchinson said on Talk Business and Politics over the weekend that we are giving the people, he said this, we are giving the people a net tax relief or a net tax cut. He said that. And so I'm going to take that statement, not that it's going to matter, but I'm still going to take that statement, and we're going to wait until the Republicans leave the, sine die or whatever. That's their term for adjournment, like official adjournment. It's called sine die. It means that they, I don't know. You could, I don't know. Sine die. It's this when the, it's when they're like, taxpayers now get to work funding this government. Get out there, private sector. Go out there and be somebody. We need to run this government. All right. So, skipping down, single mom, Joe, single mom of two. Senator Trent Garner responds directly to Senator Hendren's example, from his example he got from Washington, he said.
Discussion. All right, Senator Garner, you ready?
Yes, sir. So that mother of two you brought earlier, what's the maximum she get in earned income credit?
I believe it's $5,800. Now that's the credit.
How much
she
does
gets? 5%.
So she gets $70, $80 back at the end of the year?
Correct.
Okay. Let's say this mother was a smoker. She works long hours. She wants to smoke. Right now, under your numbers, is 80 cents roughly a pack.
That's right.
Numbers from the industry I've gotten is more like $1.21. So I'm going to go off that assumption. If you have a carton a week, which is about a pack and some change per day, that's $12.10 per week increase to that person's money. If you add that out for a year, that's $692 extra on that poor mother every single year. The benefits she'll get from this earned income credit will be ate up in a month and some change.
Can I answer that?
I'm still asking the question.
I mean, are we questioning or are we statements?
I'm getting to my point. I'm developing the question, okay. Senator. Thank you. So my question is, if poor people who have a lot in my district, people who work hard, who get up and have cigarettes, isn't this going to increase their cost of what they do every single day? And aren't you hitting them all year long just to pay them out at the end?
So I did some calculations on cigarette usage as well. And what I come up with for the average, somebody who smokes a pack a day under this bill is going to pay about $292 in taxes. The tax relief, as I've already said, under Senate Bill 571, saves $125 under the rate reduction, and then gives them a $77 EITC. So yeah, there's about $100 net down to somebody who smokes a pack a day.
He didn't say increase, he said
but
down.
To somebody who doesn't smoke, there's question is, do they need to continue to pay higher taxes to support those who do?
Can we stop? We may have to rewind that a little bit, Joe. I know that's hard on you, but I want to listen to that again here in just a second. So what we have here is a new oppressor and a new victim. Now, I just bear with me here. I was thinking about this. I was watching all of this live yesterday. I don't know, like 2-3 minutes, something like that. All right, so I was watching all of this live yesterday, and then it dawned on me this morning as I was preparing to go on the air. The Democrats are about class warfare, and Senator Hendren has essentially separated two new classes. So you have the socioeconomic poor against the socioeconomic poor who smoke. And I think there's something to be said about that. We, under this bill, under the presentation, Senator Hendren, under the presentation of this bill, is pitting the socioeconomic poor against the socioeconomic poor who smoke. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how class warfare is done. Go ahead, cue it up again. Let's listen to this.
Now that's the credit.
How much
she
does she
gets?
get
5%.
So she gets $70, $80 back at the end of the year?
Correct.
And by the way,
let's say this mother
it's not a refund.
was a smoker.
It's a welfare
She works
program.
long hours. She wants to smoke. Right now, under your numbers, is 80 cents roughly a pack.
That's right.
Numbers from the industry I've gotten is more like $1.21. So I'm going to go off that assumption. If you have a carton a week, which is about a pack and some change per day, that's $12.10 per week increase to that person's money. If you add that out for a year, that's $692 extra on that poor mother every single year. The benefits she'll get from this earned income credit will be ate up in a month and some change.
Can I answer that?
I'm still asking the question.
I mean, are we questioning or are we statements?
I'm getting to my point. I'm developing the question, Senator. Thank you. So my question is, if
he's used to the power,
who have
he's used to the
a lot
power.
in my district, people who work hard, who get up and have cigarettes, isn't this going to increase their cost of what they do every single day? And aren't you hitting them all year long just to pay them out at the end?
So I did some calculations on cigarette usage as well, and what I come up with for the average, somebody who smokes a pack a day under this bill is going to pay about $292 in taxes. The tax relief, as I've already said, under Senate Bill 571, saves $125 under the rate reduction, and then gives them a $77 EITC. So yeah, there's about $100 net down to somebody who smokes a pack a day.
You
but
mean
somebody
increase?
Who doesn't smoke, there's the question is, do they need to continue to pay higher taxes to support those who do?
There we go. Stop. There it is. You see a few things.
Run around real quick.
You don't want to say it's an increase on the poor who smoke, but that's exactly what you said. You say down because it works. That it technically could be correct saying down because of the equation that you're doing in your head. Again, that's the class war first. Separating the pitting the socioeconomic poor against the socioeconomic poor who smoke. I'm telling you, this is rich. So who's the victim here? Those who don't? Who's the victim? Those who do smoke are the victims because they're the ones that are actually going to end up paying more under a plan that's touted as giving relief to the poor. They're saying they're characterizing the victims as those who are poor and don't smoke and are having to somehow pay for. And that, you know what, that argument only works if you agree that socialized medicine is the right thing to do, meaning that we're born into this world. Now think about this. You're born into the world enslaved to somebody else by law, not by altruism, not by some religious personal belief. I want to help my neighbor, I want to help the poor, but by law, we are born into this world enslaved to be responsible for someone else's health care costs. And if you accept that premise, then the economic argument is solid, meaning you can say, I have a right to say this person doesn't need to smoke, and if they do, I'm going to punish them for it because of health care costs. I have a right to say this person doesn't need to eat bacon. Okay. By the way, if you go all the way back to Ron Paul, for example, like the guy who did a lot to make libertarianism mainstream, or it's like at least as far as I'm concerned, when I became politically conscious, I didn't really know anything about a libertarian until I heard of a guy named Ron Paul, the Republican congressman from Texas, and he is quoted as saying that he was against the war on drugs. He was against the government making any drug illegal because just on the principle that if you give the government the authority to say what is legal to put in your body or what is illegal to put in your body, then at some point you won't be able to have a donut. And say what you want to, but he's been proven right because you have that, that communist up there, Michael Bloomberg, who said that you don't need to have more than 64 ounces of soda. Remember the soda ban? And then they also, salt was bad for you at the time. And I say at the time because depending on which study you look at, well, salt's good for you. No, salt's bad for you. Eggs are really good for you. No, actually, eggs are really bad for you. You don't have salt in New York unless you ask for it. These people are control. This is about control, okay? That's what this is about. And the economic argument when it comes to health care, this is why, please, if you're listening, go back and listen to Ronald Reagan. Reagan said that socialism will come to America through health care. That will be how they get the foot in the door. That is to be said, what we allow the government to do to us now and what we expect the government to do for us is vastly different psychologically, what we expect, than what people used to expect. And so it's just this gradual thing. Now, the people on the left will call that progress, but I see it as more dependency and then less freedom. And that's what we're trying to, that's why Conduit News is here. That's why we're trying to get the word out. Senator Hendren's argument for why the liberal goal, the Democrat policy objective of an earned income tax credit, they've been trying to get forever, and now they're going to get it, it looks like. I mean, this passed out of committee on a voice vote yesterday. It now looks like they're going to get a policy they've wanted when their party is in the midst of decline statewide. The chairman, Michael John Gray, he just lost his seat because the Republicans challenged him because they thought, hey, it'd be funny if we could take out Michael John Gray. And they did with a great guy named Craig Christensen. And so so their party is shrinking, and now you're going to give the Democrats what they've been wanting? It just doesn't make any sense at all. At all. And those arguments about, why should they have to pay for it? It makes health care more expensive. And that all may be true, but when did the Republican Party all of a sudden say socialize? When did we decide to embrace socialized medicine? I thought we had market ideas. I thought we wanted the market to solve this problem. The problem of access and the problem of cost. You solve the problem of cost, you can solve the problem of access. We're going to take a break. You are listening to Conduit News Radio. My name is Paul Harrell. Thanks for listening.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
With it, but you know what they put the American people through, what they've put the president through in the wake of his election has been a bunch of really just theatrics. Just it's fake outrage, fake collusion, these fake conspiracies. Is that what's going on across the pond in Parliament as well? I mean, they're acting like this is a really, really difficult thing to figure out how to get, to no longer be a part of the European Union. It seems like they're making it difficult on purpose.
Absolutely. You're spot on, as the English would say. You're correct again. They're trying to say, again, to the common folk, you have no idea how difficult this is going to be. And we're not really, we are not really sure that it's worth going through the process to figure out how to exit. And so they've been for 2 years, now almost 2.5 years, going against the will.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Legislation by, is it Deanne Vaught, has moved forward to increase the speed limit here in the state of Arkansas. Yes, legislation by Republican lawmakers in Arkansas, this is from Conduit News, would increase the speed limit an additional 5 miles an hour on state highways. In controlled access highways outside of urban areas, the speed limit would increase to 75 miles an hour, and in urban areas to 65 miles an hour. House Bill 1631 passed the Senate committee today and is now it'll be voted on by the state Senate. House Bill 1631 passed the Arkansas House by 83-2, 14 abstentions. Anyway, that's State Representative Deanne Vaught, the Republican from Horatio. So, it says here the legislation faced pressure from the Arkansas State Police as well as the Arkansas Trucking Association. But I don't know about you, but I'm ready to joke. Should I say what you said? You're ready to drive 80 and feel less bad about it. So if it's 75, we can all drive 80 and feel less bad about it. Isn't that right? The one thing about this bill, back to this earned income tax credit bill, when we come back from break, I want to let you hear from the vaping shops that say they're going to go out of business if this passes. We'll tell you more about that. That was probably the most amazing point. I thought when the business owners got up there and started telling the Republicans how this was going to negatively impact them, that the bill was going to fail because of that. And then to hear the resounding yes votes that were either dismissive, meaning we don't believe you, we don't believe this is going to hurt your business, or no, this is just part of it. Not to mention, there was a lot of talk there, Joe, about vaping being the safer alternative to traditional cigarettes, at least for now. And how many people, I know you're not saying it's not. I'm saying how many people have, in terms of healthcare costs, I mean, if it's really about healthcare costs, then, why would you want to now tax vaping more and now disincentivize that purchase when so many people are now switching, getting off of the, traditional, cigarettes that you burn, that you're ingesting a lot more than nicotine is what I'm trying to say. We got to take a break. We've got a 5-minute break here. We'll be back right after your local news on this station. Don't go anywhere.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
The people under a process, under their government, that allow the people to speak, and they refuse to accept what the people want to do. So they are, as Hillary says, they are the deplorables. They don't have the right to govern themselves. We have to do that for them. and they're trying to make it, as you said, make it much more complicated than it needs to be. You know, England's been around for hundreds of centuries. I mean, it's not like this was a new country that was just created. And all of these countries in Europe have been around for a long, long time. They have the potential to understand, to know how to govern themselves and how to get along with their neighbors. I've heard people say over the weekend, well, what's going to happen to borders? How are you going to prevent people from coming in from the north, dealing with other parts of the British Empire? And I said, we've done it. They did it for centuries.
Yep.
They don't want to. If they want to put a war, they want to put customs in. That's fine. They should be able to do that. But if they know how to separate themselves from this union by simply looking at all the laws that have been put on their books and getting rid of them, it's just like what Mr. Trump did when he came in. He used executive orders, just like Obama used executive orders, to try and move the country along as quickly as possible. It's not that difficult, but they're trying to make it more difficult because they want to prove that the British people are stupid.
So do you have a current update on this? I'm just curious of the global implications. March 29th, right? That was supposed to be the drop-dead date. Is that still the date, or are they just saying, hey, we're going to postpone this, we're not going to Brexit?
There is a drop-dead date of March of 29th. There is no deal in place of how they're going to exit. And theoretically, the 29th of March comes, they're no longer part of the EU, and there's no deal for exiting the EU. So we'll have some difficulty for a while trying to work our way through it item by item. But unless the Parliament, which is considering revoting to allow a new referendum to get the people to, quote, verify what they said the first time is what they want to do, which is a delaying tactic on the part of the elites, theoretically, they're supposed to leave the European Union on the 29th.
Okay, so that's
with
still...
or without a deal.
Wow. So,
but, as I said, Parliament is considering the possibility of a new general vote so that they want to postpone the 29th in order to have a revote on the ballot issue of leaving. And the belief is that if it goes to a revote, Theresa May is gone.
Is there the kind of rage that we are seeing in France with the yellow vests? Do you think that exists in the UK?
The French are much more passionate people than the people of England. The people of England are much more conservative. I don't know that they'll take to the streets over Brexit. They might. But what I do believe, inherent in your question, is that the British people are getting angry that their elected leaders can't seem to follow their wishes, and that's why they're talking about May being out, and why there's such turmoil within the various parties within the English political structure. A lot of people are angry, but they do it much differently than they do. The yellow vests is really a different issue, but in a sense, it's the people rebelling against the elites who again told them, well, we're going to have this global warming initiative, and you're going to have to pay for it by increased gasoline and fuel prices. And the people said no. The government backed down, but the people are still protesting other things that the government's doing. So the French people feel much more empowered over what they're trying to do with their protests than the British people feel somewhat frustrated that the elites are refusing to do what they want them to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anyone ever doubted, that there are essentially puppet masters that believe they can, control things from the top.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
It's hour number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. We were this issue. We talked about it most of the hour in the last hour because it was a kind of I think the biggest thing that happened down there yesterday. Although there was some other good stuff. This is just maybe into the weeds and maybe a little esoteric, but this committee debate over the earned income tax credit and raising cigarette taxes by what came out of the committee, not 80 cents a pack, but $1.21 a pack. First we heard 80 cents, then I heard 88 cents, then I heard $1.20. Now I think I misheard that. It's really $1.21 according to what was said. We listened to that. Senator Trent Garner very outspokenly against Senator Hendren's bill. So one of the things that Senator Trent Garner brought up was whether or not you need 75%. And this is one clip that we did not get to last hour, and I wanted to make sure we started this hour with it because it's very important because there appears to be a pattern emerging where the legislature, or at least the leadership, is trying to get around the Constitution of the state of Arkansas. Listen.
Committee, Senator Garner, you're recognized for question.
Thank you. Would you agree that this would require 3/4 votes since it's under Amendment 19 in our Constitution to get the majority through?
No.
What about the last 5 cigarette taxes since Amendment 19 has required a supermajority?
Because, again, all I can tell you, Senator Garner, is what the attorneys BLR told me, who I have never found to be anything other than professional and well-informed, is that the way this is structured, it does not require 3/4 vote.
More. So now it's revenue neutral. I mean, I hate to belabor my last point, but we just got this impact that's not even the whole impact to explain how this is done. You've done a job of trying to explain it to us, but I still think there's a lot of money moving one way or the other to come out to zero every year. It seems like we're doing a budgetary gimmick and tricks to try to get it revenue neutral. I'd love to see more in-depth understanding of this before we're required to vote on it. What would you say to that?
I would say I spent all weekend, and I can go into depth about how every one of those numbers is calculated if you'd like. I think most of us would probably go to sleep halfway through, but the fact is we all know that fiscal impacts are our best guess based on many times estimates, and we spent a lot of time working on this all weekend long to make sure that the numbers did zero out, because it is going to be what it is represented to be, which is not a money grab for the government or not just an attempt to gouge tobacco, but it is a rebalancing of the tax code.
Stop.
I have more. I don't know if other communities.
I want to stop, but they spent all weekend long. You can trust those numbers. Well, we spent all weekend on this. All weekend. Isn't that? I mean, that's 2 days. We spent 2 days on this. You can spend all weekend. Meaning. I mean, we worked through the weekend. Gosh, give me some credit here. Trust our numbers. We spent all weekend. And that's that right there. That's the minutia that I'm glad that we're streaming in the Senate now. We get to peer in and we get to see these decisions that have humongous consequences. These decisions that they're making based on, well, I worked all weekend on these numbers. Of course you can trust them. It's preposterous. People in the real world who are going to work right now, they hear that and they're outraged by it. No, but I don't even think, like right now as I'm covering this story, the people in politicos at the Marble Palace, they probably don't think that this is a big deal. We worked all weekend on the numbers. Average people going to work right now hear that, and they're like, okay, so I am going to have to live under these laws, and they're making these decisions, these giant changes to the tax code. They're giving the Democrats a policy that they've wanted, which doesn't make sense because we have Republican supermajorities. And the arguments that swayed the opinion of the committee was, well, I mean, I can go over the numbers if you want, but, I mean, it'll put the committee to sleep. But just so you know, we worked all weekend on this.
I just imagine that argument being used in other professions. So, for instance, let's say there's a merger happening between two companies, and they're like, okay, what's the overall, like, what's it going to look like here numerically for the cost to merge these two companies? Well, it's going to cost about this much money. Okay, that seems like a lot of money. He goes, well, trust me, spent 2 days on this all weekend. I didn't go out partying like my friends. I spent all weekend on this. These numbers are solid. There's no need to check them. They're right.
Yeah.
Or, okay,
I could go into the numbers.
I could go into the numbers
on this giant acquisition.
But I spent the entire weekend on it.
But I mean, that would just put you to sleep.
Yeah. And then in another profession, you're in a court of law, and you're defending somebody, and you get up there. Closing statements, you get up in front of the jury and go, guys, I spent 2 days, I spent all weekend setting up this defense. Took me so much time the whole weekend. Just let him go.
Yeah, let him go. It's totally fine. Oh man, I think, yeah. I know, right? But see that, and listen, I'm not suggesting that convinced Senator Trent Gardner. He was skeptical through the entire meeting yesterday. And but it's just the answers they give it's like, why are we even down there? Why don't we just make one of these guys the emperor? They might as well be already. They get whatever they want, you know. Telephone number 870-275-9799. You can call or text that. Sound off on Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. Backing up though, Senator Gardner raising an excellent point. The last 5 times you've raised the tobacco tax in Arkansas, it required, under Amendment 19 of the Arkansas Constitution, 3/4 vote of the Senate, 3/4 vote of the House, which is a lot. And this is now the second time this session, in order to get around Amendment 19, they have tried, or they're now either trying or have taxed the same product twice. They did this with your gas tax. That's how they got the governor's highway plan through. They needed 75%, or I'm sorry, they had attorneys that said we only need 51%, because they created a new excise tax at the wholesale level on gas. Now, publicly, their own statement said that'll only be 3 cents at the pump. Well, we already have a tax at the pump, at the point of sale. They do a new tax, and they say, well, this is the wholesale level. It's still the same product, but it's at the wholesale, so we don't need 75% because it's a new tax. What that means, Amendment 19 essentially says that if you have an existing tax on the books, you need 75% to change it either way, whether you're going to lower it or raise it, of each chamber. It's a check on government, right? It makes sure that the majority is truly represented here when it comes to taking money from the people. The same with spending. And so one might start to ask, well, what's the point of Amendment 19 if you want to tax a product twice? You just call it a new tax, but you're still taxing the same product twice. It's certainly a way around Amendment 19. Fast forward to today, where Senator Jim Hendren is trying to tax cigarettes, even though they're a product that are already taxed. He's just saying it's a new excise tax. Because it's a new excise tax, you only need 51%, not the 75%. Now, this is not, so this is twice this session. If you go back to the fiscal session, 2 fiscal sessions ago, they got around the 75% threshold when it came to spending by a line item veto scheme, which I'm not going to rehash that, but this is now at least the third time, and maybe more, but the third time under this governor that these types of maneuvers are being done, and they're relying on attorneys that are telling them, no, everything is fine, we can do this. So essentially, Amendment 19 to the Arkansas State Constitution is meaningless. Let me say that again. As it stands right now, Amendment 19 to the Arkansas Constitution when it comes to taxing new things is meaningless because the current leadership and the current administration in Little Rock at the Marble Palace has been advised by the attorneys on high that you can get around a law in our Constitution that's designed to limit government. It's designed to make sure that the people's will is represented here. And they are going around that, proudly going around that. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they think they're very clever. Again, the telephone number 870-275-9799. Skipping down here, another portion of this bill would seriously impact vape shops. We're going to skip down to a gentleman by the name of Bill McCullough. Bill McCullough testified yesterday, and this is what he sounded like. Go ahead, Joe, whenever you're ready. Oh, is it loading? Oh, no. Okay, so it's spinning, it's buffering. Well, you may have to do a refresh in order to get it. You want to do that? You just want to take a break
and do that. It's my understanding.
Hang on, it's Senator Jonathan Dismang. The telephone number again, 870-275-9799. I can tell you this again. For all of you who were coming down to Little Rock to hear or testify for the gun-free zones, getting less gun-free zones, House Bill 1694, don't come to Little Rock today. That bill will not be heard. Gary Epperson posting, no need to come to Little Rock. House Bill 1694 will not run due to lack of Republican support on the House Judiciary Committee. Thank you for your willingness to help. I'm truly sorry that you will not have the opportunity to testify in support of the legislation. Share this with everyone planning on attending. Representative Stan Berry was the key vote, and his was a no from what we gathered, along with Representative Fight and Representative House, but we're not done fighting yet. Just so you know, again, he said for all those planning to attend HB 1694 hearing, it looks like for the time being, Moms Demand Action won. All right, back to this committee meeting. Let's talk about Arkansas business owners. Listen.
My name is Bill McCullough, and I own a vapor shop in the Otter Creek area in Little Rock. My shop has been open for about 5 years. I stopped smoking combustible cigarettes by using a vapor, and I was so inspired by my experience, I felt the need to share it with others. In the very close to 5 years that my shop has been open, I've helped very close to 10,000 people leave combustible cigarettes. And of those 10,000 people that have left combustible cigarettes, about 60% of those have even given up vaping. Many of my other customers are not using the nicotine in there. The liquids are available with a zero nicotine content. I am selling more and more of that zero nicotine content. I also would like to assure you that Genuine Vapor Shops, we're very good at not selling to minors. We're as much against the minors having the products in their hands. We're appalled at the fact that they have them in the schools as much as anyone else. I would like you to, how this bill is going to affect my shop. I appreciate what each of you are doing for the tax thing to help the people with the earned income tax credit and everything, but it's very likely that it will close the doors to my shop. With this 68% tax, that is huge I have a very small business. It's a small shop. The day that this bill goes into effect, if it passes, I will have to write a check to the state of Arkansas for somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000. I don't know how many of you here own and operate small businesses. That's a very large chunk of money for my shop. If I close my doors, the two young ladies that are my employees, one is a single mom. The other one, she has 2 children. The other one is a very nice young lady who is a caretaker for 3 of her nieces. And one of them is a special needs child. This tax will hurt the people that own vapor shops in a very harsh way.
Stop. So
we do not.
That's a business owner. His pleas kind of fell on deaf ears with the Republicans on that committee. Again, this bill advanced. Now there is some confusion as to whether or not Mr. McCullum there, other vape shop owners will have to cut a check to DFNA in September when this bill would go into effect. Senator Hendren disputes that. But later in the committee, he even admitted, well, if we need to fix something, we can fix it. Let's go ahead and pass it. We'll fix it somewhere else. Later in the committee, he also said, well, DFNA, see, the thing is, DFNA has broad rulemaking authority if this goes into effect. And so they are reading it like any skeptical business owner would. The industry, the vaping industry, is saying that there's going to be a floor tax, meaning that once this goes into effect, the products on your shelves that you haven't paid the tax for are going to be taxed. At least but there is confusion surrounding that. And that just goes to show you what a big change this is. Let's go to Ken Hagerman. Ken Hagerman is a business owner in the vaping industry as well. He testified before this committee yesterday. Take a listen. Here we go. Sorry about that pause. So let's see. He's making his way to the table.
After we have no one else signed up to speak for the bill, and 3 others left to speak against the bill. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you know kind of in advance. That way you can prepare yourself, get on up. That way we don't have 30-second to a minute delay between presentations if possible. So next up will be Scout, I believe, Stubbs, and accompanied by Bradley Phillips. So, sir, if you could recognize yourself for the committee.
My name is Ken Hagerman. I'm the manager of a vape shop in Cabot, Arkansas.
You're recognized to speak against the bill.
I'm against it. One, I've been a vapor for 7 years. The tax is not only going to affect the shop that I manage, but it's also going to it's going to affect the people that come into my shop. We're going to lose 4 employees that we have. The shop's been open 5 years. The benefits that I've had from vaping is I've been smoke-free for 7 years. I have asthma. Out of the 7 years, I went from using an inhaler that I've kept on me for ever since I was 5 years old and got diagnosed with asthma. I'd go through a preventable inhaler every 2 weeks when I was smoking. Now that I've quit smoking, I've turned around and I still carry an inhaler, but it lasts me 6 to 8 months now. Just the different benefits I see from the vaping and the way it's helped me, starting off at a high nicotine, working myself down to a low nicotine. It's helped me so much, and I've seen it help so many other people. And by taxing this, the way we're talking about taxing it, it's going to cut down a lot of people from coming into the vape shop that are wanting to better themselves, that are wanting to get away from the smoking.
Now, keep in mind, in last hour, we highlighted the fact that under this earned income tax credit scheme, where they're then going to tax tobacco, the class warfare is now even more specific because we are now pitting the socioeconomic poor against the socioeconomic poor who smoke. And matter of fact, that's what the argument was. Well, I mean, if you smoke and you get the earned income tax credit, yeah, you're going to end up paying more. But I mean, should those who don't smoke have to pay for those who smoke? I mean, that's what's going on right now. And I just think, wow, unbelievable. But on that point, they're talking about the healthcare costs, right? If you smoke, you increase healthcare costs. By the way, that could be solved by just making people pay more for their insurance if they do smoke. I mean, that's what happens with life insurance. I don't know what the big deal is, but we are completely denying the fact that if healthcare costs is the big incentive here and vaping is healthier. Now, I know it's not. I know you see these commercials. No, vaping's not healthier. Clearly, a combustible cigarette where you're ingesting all of that tar, okay, is worse for you than water vapor that's got traces of nicotine in it. Okay? Like, clearly, I know which one I would pick, if I had the option. So anyway, this is we have to go to break. We have to go to break. We're going to take a break for a minute. Going to be back here in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
The first time is what they want to do, which is a delaying tactic on the part of the elites. Theoretically, they're supposed to leave the European Union on the 29th.
Okay, so that's
with
still...
or without a deal.
Wow.
So, but, as I said, Parliament is considering the possibility of a new general vote, so that they want to postpone the 29th in order to have a revote on the ballot issue of leaving. And the belief is that if it goes to a revote, Theresa May is gone.
Is there the kind of rage that we are seeing in France with the yellow vest? Do you think that exists in the UK?
The French are a much more passionate people than the people of England. The people of England are much more conservative. I don't know that they'll take to the streets over Brexit. They might, but what I do believe.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Headline from ConduitNews.com, abortion reversal bill favored by Arkansas House. Check this story out. Legislation has been passed by the Arkansas House and the Senate, which would require medical providers to notify in writing women receiving an abortion through drug inducement that the procedure can be halted in the beginning stages. Governor Asa Hutchinson will now review the measure and potentially sign it into law. If the legislation passes, it will make Arkansas the fourth state with such legislation. Arkansas would join the ranks of Idaho, South Dakota, and Utah. The measure follows the passage of the abortion ban trigger law, which was signed into law earlier in the legislative session. The abortion ban trigger law would mandate that abortions are illegal if Roe v. Wade should be overturned by the Supreme Court of the United States. Also, during this legislative session, Governor Asa Hutchinson signed an 18-week abortion ban into effect. After 18 weeks of pregnancy, a woman would be banned from seeking an abortion in Arkansas. The bill excludes cases of rape, incest, or medical emergencies. The American Civil Liberties Union of Arkansas has stated they will be suing the state over the unconstitutionality of such a ban. Oh, what could happen with that lawsuit, especially if Ruth Bader Ginsburg decides to vacate her seat. I think a lot of people are anticipating that she will be the next Supreme Court justice that President Donald Trump will get to replace. So, and if that's the case, and we have a new ruling on abortion, this genocide that's been going on, Arkansas's trigger law will go into effect. And we'll be able to save more lives. Back in a minute.
The French are a much more passionate people than the people of England. The people of England are much more conservative. I don't know that they'll take to the streets over Brexit. They might. But what I do believe, inherent in your question, is that the British people are getting angry that their elected leaders can't seem to follow their wishes, and that's why they're talking about May being out, and why there's such turmoil within the various parties within the English political structure. A lot of people are angry, but they do it much differently than they do. The yellow vests is really a different issue, but in a sense, it's the people rebelling against the elites who again told them, well, we're going to have this global warming initiative, and you're going to have to pay for it by increased gasoline and fuel prices. And the people said no. The government backed down, but the people are still protesting other things that the government's doing. So the French people feel much more empowered over what they're trying to do with their protests than the British people feel somewhat frustrated that the elites are refusing to do what they want them to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anyone ever doubted, that there are essentially puppet masters that believe they can, control things from the top. I mean, that is on display now in so many governments across the globe right now. It's undeniable. And what's at the center of it, Dan, and I would assume you would agree, is that the people that actually have to live under these laws that are being made, or these decisions being made by these powerful people, they're suffering in many results because of these decisions.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the reasons why the protest started in France. The fuel taxes that they want to impose to pay for the greening of France were an burden on the part of the average person, and they said enough, and so they decided they're going to fight. I think what's amazing about the Yellow Jackets is how long they've been continuing to fight the fight and not giving up, and the government has become more and more frustrated. The elites are more and more frustrated because they don't understand how the poor people and the ignorant people are doing this to their country. They never look within and never decide maybe it's something we've done wrong. It's always somebody else.
Yeah, the elites are the problem. That's certainly what I'm getting at.
They are.
Hey, Dan Perkins, I appreciate it, sir. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, so I got this. You hear the guy. You hear the one about the surgeon that learned the new procedure. It was a little controversial. He goes to the patient and he tells the patient who's a little nervous. He needs the new procedure, but he's a little nervous about it. And the surgeon says, "Don't worry about it. I worked all weekend on this." Folks, welcome back to the program. Mr. David Colbert is with us. He is a mental health advocate. David, how you doing this morning, sir?
Paul, I got a cold over the weekend, and I've been fighting off the, what do you call that? Hopefully it's not anything, contagious.
Well,
if it were, I'd go down to the Capitol and find the correct people and get them as close as I could as possible. Of course, but
that's actually really good.
How is it going? I went down to the Dome of Emptiness yesterday. Actually, this is their vacation week, sort of, kind of, right? It's, since it's spring break. I wanted to talk this morning. I want to put the brakes on, if you'll allow me to do this, and talk just about what you mentioned a minute ago. Arkansas, this is my home state. I mean, I was born here. I've had so many great experiences here. I never would have had anywhere else. We have to refocus on the importance of looking at mental health in this state, Paul. Everything we talk about that we know is a problem has a connection in mental health at some level. And our state has never, ever done anything but provide very limited lip service to it. If you look at the history of funding, and you look at the inability, in many ways, for mental health to be positioned by the government as an important element of overall public health. My professional experience has tied that directly to the growth of gambling by the government for 20 years. Since 1997, a national crisis has been declared by many people who work in the arena I do, including the faith community, including the professional community, counseling-wise, addiction community, including good government policy foundations all over the United States. And you and I know that the issues around gambling are not liberal and they're not conservative. They are not driven by the politics of election. The bottom line is state lotteries for 20 years have been the fastest, absolutely largest growth vehicle of government at the state level. The addiction is revenue sources to those elected who become a part of a system that allows the constituents and the citizens to be put in the direct harm of their revenue production vehicle in order to offset one thing alone, making the tough decisions about taxes and about placement of budget monies that they don't have to make because they take the gambling money and spread it like a balm across a lot of these problems to make it look like, and I mean this, Paul, look like they have some concern about the folks in the state who are just working so hard and aren't getting a fair shake, and so we're going to cut their taxes. Well, if you cut the taxes on the people already struggling and you spend millions and millions of dollars for a decade now ingraining them to participate in a state-only operated gambling, I guess I get frustrated because I see this so clearly, and I think you and I agree with this. Personally, we've talked about it. It takes a lot of years and a lot of tough decisions to accept the realities that exist in the gambling part of the government. It is so overwhelmingly wrong and makes so much money that people bury it, and they bury it very effectively. Here in our state, it's been, we're a poster child for this. I'm surprised. I'm hurt, actually. But I believe we'll see some changes. We have to.
You think there's legislation?
Well, these are citizen-driven changes from the outside in.
Do we have
the fact that?
Do we have any legislation? Do we have any legislation that's going to come up before the session ends?
We're going to celebrate the 10th year anniversary of the first piece of legislation being put into, and I'm going to use the word solutions only today. Nothing's been recommended that wasn't absolutely driven by reducing harms. Two simple words. When you know harms exist, and you're in a position, as they are, to protect the public health, you institute best practices that reduce harms. Every one they put in writing in 2009, I'm sitting here looking at them right now, every one they put in writing has been broken on multiple occasions, year after year after year. But as that revenue grew, public oversight in some regard went away completely. Those who are my allies still that have fought this, liberal groups, very conservative groups and others, stepped back somewhat because this administration in particular has kind of a mature lottery, and they'll use it as a wedge, many people do in other states, between unrelated issues. And that cost us money, and it cost us, ultimately, life here in Arkansas. You cannot sit and tell one person that this is why would you pass my piece of legislation, quote unquote, that's pro-life, when you're going to come against my pro-revenue legislation for the lottery? The dynamics imposed here, because again, suicide ultimately is.
How much does mental health problems cost? You know, everyone wants to talk about health care costs. The government's now picking up the health care costs. So mental health has a health care price tag on it, doesn't it?
On a national scale, it's phenomenal. But just at the Arkansas level, 11 years ago, and this is 11 years ago, we did a comprehensive study through DHS, other organizations. I will say this. We have to, and I hate the word study, Paul. Interim study means delay it. We need a study done in the private sector with whatever available funding we have from the state and from other resources in the private industry. How do we know what to do with healthcare if we don't genuinely know where we have these problems? And I'm going to make a direct correlation to mental health. In the last legitimate measurement of Arkansas's mental health services delivery capability, we stand 47th in America. And yet in other categories that we know are attached to the impact of untreated mental health, we stand in the top 5.
Wasn't
we were just all over it.
Wasn't Arkansas's big contractor on mental health that Preferred Family Healthcare outfit? Am I wrong there?
This has hurt the whole process, Paul. What we've got is and I said this last night, but these are just people I encounter every day. You've known me long enough to know that, and you know this, Paul, out here in the actual world that has to function differently than this legislative body in particular, these needs are recognized. People admittedly say, the corruption cases that are so dominating our state in particular has had an impact on legislators being willing to go in that arena because of them, because they were, in fact, focused on mental health providers. So combine that with a lack of services and a high impact of untreated, and we have at least, I'm going to say a decade-long situation where what little health care we had available for mental health in Arkansas had already been put together in a system that the result was not outcome-based, period. The result of that entire process was how much is who going to make off of pricing in particular, which for the money, even a person in the private sector likely could have delivered a 4-to-1 margin of services. There was some, going to the guts of what we paid as a state for many of these contract services, we need to look inside our own borders. We need to understand that we have I'll break something. Follow me, please. Let's look at the lottery as a resource for mental health services. Let's look at that revenue that we say, quote unquote, is for the kids being dedicated to mental health services at the local community level. We can take a % of that money.
You mentioned that there's all these regulations trying to regulate gambling in this state, and
well, there are none, Paul.
Okay. Well, then what were you talking about earlier from 2009?
The 2008 study, by the way, was about $1.9 to $2.1 billion a year in the state of Arkansas. We were losing directly to mental health.
So I guess I want to know is, I know they've used kids in advertisements with no consequences. Tell us about that.
Well, but television is the dominant tool of marketing for all state lotteries. They, in fact, dominate not only the actual schedules. I'll go back to this. I was, again, blessed to work in a lot of areas, politics and the media in particular, network television. At that time, we didn't have gambling. We had casinos. And here in Little Rock, we would get budgets from Oklahoma and from Louisiana, from casinos. And Oakland, of course, and our friends at Southland. But when we look at the lottery as a part or a component of gambling in Arkansas, they are dominantly the largest, will remain the largest, have grown the fastest, and have less accountability to the public than the private providers do. They cannot lead by example at all. They, in fact, for reasons I still don't quite understand, wrote their own rules out in the beginning in 2009. They're called best practices. And right there at the top of the list is minors will not be used in lottery. I put gambling behind lottery whenever I say it, in lottery gambling commercials or promotions. They did it almost immediately with product placement in the retail environment.
Okay, so they're violating
Kids on TV.
Their own standards. They're violating their own standards, right?
They're violating what are actually international standards. Now, imagine this, Paul. Lotteries are an international, really restricted business. They are run operationally by a handful of international companies. Ours is run out of the state of Arkansas by a company that has no ties to the state of Arkansas because they're located in the United Kingdom. That alone should have stopped this process, and the legislators should have taken a long look at the direction that this thing had headed. The governor saw fit, Governor Hutchinson, to take it in-house. At that point, myself, the National Council on Problem Gambling, Arkansas, every group that I've ever worked with, pretty much knew that it would become so hidden within the guts of the revenue, it would become a revenue vehicle, period. There would be no discussion of public health impact. We would have an aggressive model of marketing that, again, would include product placement in a family-friendly retail environment of gambling machines, which today, Paul, if you look at them everywhere, we knew that those lottery vending terminal machines, lottery vending ticket machines, were an abysmal failure in South Carolina because of underage gambling. And the director from South Carolina came to Arkansas. If you look at our state and the advantage that's been taken here over every citizen, is the fact that we woke up and we were in a great position to only have 2 casinos in our borders. No one can justify the use of gambling as a sustainable vehicle for government revenue production since 1964. So I've got this huge animal that literally jumps over this huge wall that we've built, and it was effective, keeping out gambling providers who wanted to come in here and take advantage of one thing, Paul. Arkansas has a huge foundation of unfortunate tax laws that have put us in a position to sustain poverty in this state. And what drives lottery gambling are poor people, not people that are buying a ticket for any purpose good. They're trying to make a living working. And I tell you, the working poor in our state are good people. I'm with them every day. They don't quite comprehend at this point how we can change this lottery, not them. We, us. This thing's own lock, stock, and barrel despite of DF&A taking it. In spite of this group changing the whole structure of this lottery, ultimately, the bottom line is any agency in the state of Arkansas that provides an age-restricted product that is medically defined as an addiction, first and foremost, has the responsibility of protecting the public health. They have failed at that, continue to fail at it, rejected solution, legislative act after solution. My belief in my heart and my gut is there's nowhere left for them to stand and defend the fact they took all services 5 years ago, and during that time, we jumped in suicide rates 5 spots without a hotline for the addiction that has the highest rates of suicide. 1 out of 5 gambling addicts takes their own life. A simpleton in math can look at the fact that since the lottery started, we've done nothing to address gambling addiction. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
So it's something that's unchecked. Now, we're running out of time, David. I want to make sure I get to this. We're talking with David Colbert. He's a mental health advocate. He definitely knows a lot about gambling in the state of Arkansas. Now, David, you have brought some of these, violations to some people's attention. For example, let's say you have. I would imagine that the advertisements that are purchased on a lot of TV. They do a lot of TV. That's a lot of money for some of these, TV stations. So
they said $5 billion a year was too little of a TV budget.
So
$5
right.
billion was too small of a budget.
So if they're using an advertisement, running an advertisement with kids, in it, and they'll probably say, well, it's for the scholarship lottery. That's for kids. But I mean, they're not I'm assuming the TV stations, they're not going to rock the boat, right? They like this revenue stream.
Unfortunate but true, yes. If you think about this, Paul, have we seen a negative story about the lottery since Ernie Passelet got run out of the state? No, we hadn't. They dominate the news with two things. Number one is free money. I mean, what form of welfare to the ad community do you have better than a state lottery? It's free money. It's so dominant that within the words of the actual enabling language, ingrain was used. Their goal is to ingrain lottery gambling into the very culture of Arkansas. And they've done a pretty darn good job of it so far. Addictions, addiction. And when the government is the only, I'll use the word dealer, they don't use the product that I'm aware of, Paul. If you went through our body there at the Capitol and said, are you going to spend $1,400 next year on lottery tickets? You wouldn't get a one to tell you they are. Bottom line, again, bills will be introduced, and they are being introduced, and I'm headed that way as soon as we get off the phone, that have been introduced multiple times. I'll give you a letter from the National Council where Keith White says, it's our understanding $250,000 will be reinstated immediately when they cut that budget, and then we'll look at a plan that will effectively address problem gambling for blah, blah, blah. Paul, that happened 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. You don't follow up with a problem like we've had for a decade, you cannot ever say the end result won't be increased major problems. And go again to the Delta. I was with a gentleman who used to be a state senator from there yesterday for a long. He lives in Lee County. How in the world would the most impoverished counties flip up to the top 5 in scratch-off ticket sales? What drives those people who you and I know already probably most experience problems with alcohol or with drugs? Their communities already have crime. And then we put something like a lottery on top of them at retailers that are dominant, if you look at our state, in areas where the income levels match their heaviest players. This is all a plan that's been used, and I want people to see that lotteries, with an S, very much operate in a tremendously similar way. So we fall and prey as a state, and our legislature has become addicted to a revenue stream that doesn't look at public health impact, and that's going to change because the focus of these bills is mental health. The focus of funding is addictions, all addictions. We are first in untreated, undiagnosed, chronic mental illness in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. It's not about gambling, brother. Again, revenue. Do we need revenue? Absolutely. Is it there? Yeah. Is it growing? Yes. The focus of the dedicated monies will be toward local community mental health services to make sure we include in the component of prevention, education, problem gambling. Gambling is a defined addiction.
David Colbert, I appreciate it, sir. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, Paul, I thank you so much for talking, and we'll get together soon.
Okay, all right.
Appreciate
it, David.
Have a great one.
I'm sure I'll see David here later on in the day. I'll probably post up on around a column or something and talk to David some more. He's always great to have on, and I just love his wealth of knowledge. I mean, it is immense. You can just tell from talking to him. The main part I thought was fascinating was the lottery wanted to come here so bad because Arkansas has a tax system that is creating so many impoverished people, and it's impoverished people that tend to buy more lottery tickets. That is such a rebuke of what we've allowed to happen, and now there's no oversight, according to him. We're going to take a break. Back in a minute.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed roller lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799.
The greening of France were an burden on the part of the average person, and they said enough, and so they decided they're going to fight. I think what's amazing about the Yellow Jackets is how long they've been continuing to fight the fight and not giving up, and the government has become more and more frustrated. The elites are more and more frustrated because they don't understand how the poor people and the ignorant people are doing this to their country, and they never look within and never decide maybe it's something we've done wrong. It's always somebody else.
Yeah, the elites are the problem. That's certainly what I'm getting at.
They are.
Hey, Dan Perkins, I appreciate it, sir. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
Anytime. Thank you for calling.
It's always great to have you on. He's the author of the Brotherhood of the Red Nile trilogy, and you need to look for his writings again. Over at
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Committee. Senator Garner, you're recognized for the question.
Thank you. Would you agree that this would require 3/4 votes since it's under Amendment 19 in our Constitution to get the majority through?
No.
What about the last 5 cigarette taxes since Amendment 19 has required a supermajority?
Because, again, all I can...
Discussion. Right. Senator Garner, you ready?
Here we go. Here's another
Yes, sir. So that mother of 2 you brought earlier, what's the maximum she get in an earned income credit?
I believe it's $5,800 now that's the credit.
How much
she
does
gets? 5%.
So she gets $70, $80 back at the end of the year?
Correct.
Okay. Let's say this mother was a smoker. She works long hours. She wants to smoke. Right now, under your numbers, is 80 cents roughly a pack.
That's right.
Numbers from the industry I've gotten is more like $1.21. So I'm going to go off that assumption. If you have a carton a week, which is about a pack and some change per day, that's $12.10 per week increase to that person's money. If you add that out for a year, that's $692 extra on that poor mother every single year. The benefits she'll get from this earned income credit will be ate up in a month and some change.
Can I answer that?
I'm still asking the question.
I mean, are we questioning or are we statements?
I'm getting to my point. I'm developing the question, okay. Senator. Thank you. So my question is, if poor people who have a lot in my district, people who work hard, who get up and have cigarettes, isn't this going to increase their cost of what they do every single day? And aren't you hitting them all year long just to pay them out at the end?
That was Senator Trent Garner. The bill did pass, even though he objected to it. The Democrat policy goes one step further under a Republican supermajority of an earned income tax credit. Go figure.